Thank the four Star Wars News at Live. It's Thursday night once again, and it is another absolutely monumental Thursday night in Star Wars. This time with breaking news. Not really breaking news, but because we knew about this, but big time news coming out with a lot of little tidbits. We have a Kathleen Kennedy almost exit interview, so to speak, here as she is officially announcing that she'll be stepping down at Lucasfilm, moving on to other things. She'll still be around helping in the film production sphere, her bread and butter, her wheelhouse, some might say, doing other projects. Lin Brennan and Dave Filoni taking over the mantle. We have a lot to talk about because if you have not read that interview from Deadline, go read it. Go absorb all of it. It is massive. It's worth your time and a lot of Star Wars tidbits, which we are going to focus on today. My name is Tyler. You can find me on TikTok at Star Wars Book Dude. And I'm joined by none other than Tom himself. We have the dynamic duo. Last week we had the quartet. This week we're down to the dynamic duo. But honestly, screw them. This is the best it could be, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, and we have a lot to unpack tonight.
It is going to be so much fun. I was getting out of my grad school class and I saw that you had texted me and I'm like, well, what's going on? So I started looking through and I'm like, oh boy, it is going to be a fantastic, a juicy night, because what is funny is that when we had the thumbnail for tonight's episode, and when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about this week, I was saying, hey, let's just go through all of the different Star Wars projects and whether or not we think this one might be the one that starts in 2026, gets in production this year, or how long until we see others, if we see any at all. And then boom, we get so many little tidbits that will help inform that discussion this evening and invite some fun speculation. So this is going to be a fun episode. I'm excited to dive into it with you, Tom. And before we really get going, though, I do want to say that as much flack as maybe Kathleen Kennedy has gotten from parts of the fandom, overall, for speaking just for myself, I just want to tip the hat off to her, tip the cap off, because she is truly an amazing, incredible person in this field. She is going to be remembered forever for all of the incredible achievements that she has had and accomplishments that have come during her time, both with Lucasfilm and obviously all of the other big blockbuster major projects that she's been a part of for years. And I think over the next, couple of weeks, we will probably have just kind of a Kathleen Kennedy central episode talking through like what her legacy is, both with Star Wars and in general. Not that she's done. She's still going to be out there in the cinema sphere. I doubt she's one of those people, Tom. I feel like she's going to be making movies until she dies.
She is definitely Hollywood royalty when you look at her body of work and what she has done, producing, and even before coming to Lucasfilm as the president. I think I was reading in the article, they said that she's, I guess, was it like it was in the billions of dollars, as far as, was it like crazy, like $15 billion for movies she's produced or been a part of? And it's just right. Her and her husband Gary have been a great team, since I guess for over 40 years. So it's truly amazing. I know a lot of people have things to say about her as far as her work with Lucasfilm. I agree, there have been highs, there have been lows, but when you reading that article from Deadline was very eye-opening, and it really made me feel how much she put herself into that. She really tried, she understood what was going on around her, and how hard it was. That's what I think hit me the most, other than the cool little tidbits that she left, but like how hard that job must have been, and the weight that job was over the last 14 years to do what she was doing. So I hope people that are really, I guess, salty on her tenure at Lucasfilm will read that and maybe, get some insight into how, what she did there and how hard it was to have, you have this rabid fan base.
And I definitely
satisfy.
Mhm. And I definitely want us to have like a full Kathleen Kennedy centric episode, maybe next week or in the next couple of weeks. But given all of the just big Star Wars things that she did talk about and hint at, I think it's very appropriate and that we have a giant Star Wars movie discussion today about the future of the franchise, the future of films for this franchise, and some answers that I think we got. And I think it's gonna be fun to speculate on some of the things that maybe if we read between the lines a little bit, what we can expect in the future. But first, I do want to talk about something that I think is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, even if they didn't see it. And someone, I guess I should say, that is near and dear to everyone's hearts, and that's Stellan Skarsgård. And this is not Star Wars related, but he did win a Golden Globe for a Best Supporting Actor role. And obviously, the Oscars are going to be coming up, in the next couple months here. But it was touching to see him win that award. I don't know if you listened to his speech at all, but just him joking about like being married, joking about being a father, and making fun of himself. And he just seems to have such a deep appreciation both for life, the people around him, his craft. And, he ended off his speech saying cinema, should be seen in cinemas, which is something that I know here at Star Wars Newsnet, especially, is widely reflected both in the people we have on the show, both in who we have in the writers' rooms, and, everyone on our Discord channel. So if you want to join Discord, go ahead and join the Discord. Please join our Discord. You can check us out. You go on the website, there's links there. Go on some of our recent articles. You could check those out as well. But definitely well deserved for Stellan Skarsgård. And, I was just touched to see him win. And I just love the fact that his speech felt so truly authentic to who he is as a person. And I'm just so blessed as a Star Wars fan that we got to have him play the character of Luthor Rail in what is going to go down as an absolutely timeless TV series in Andor.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sorry, my cats are having a field day back there. I could definitely watch him get up and speak for hours. And like you said, and I love how he talked about that and pushed, for cinema to be enjoyed in the cinema,
Mm-hmm.
So that was really great. And all the best to him. He really was very deserving. It's kind of a shame that he wasn't recognized for Andor at any of the I guess major awards, but happy for him getting that Golden Globe.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to take a moment to shout out someone who means everything to the rebellion, whether they want to accept it or not. And then one last little piece of news, which was interesting, was that Galaxy's Edge is going to be transitioning to an original trilogy timeline over in Disneyland, which I'm sure means that Disney Worlds down here in Orlando will be transitioning to that at some point very soon. A lot of things always start over in California and then work themselves over to Florida a little bit later, where I am. And so we're not going to spend very long on this, but I do think it's interesting that when Disney, acquired Star Wars and they wanted to, expand the park and create Galaxy's Edge, it was really weird to me that when you walk into, have you ever been to Galaxy's Edge, Tom?
I have.
Okay.
In both
So
parts.
let me ask you this. Is it weird when you walk into Galaxy's Edge that you don't see any you don't hear Star Wars music, like John Williams music? They created their own music for Batuu and Black Spire Outpost, which is great. I support that. But it is a little off-putting almost if you're going into Star Wars world, quote unquote, and you don't hear any of the iconic Star Wars music.
Yeah, I don't know how far, if you want to continue talking about that, but as an old trilogy guy, obviously there from the beginning, I'm so excited about this news. Before Galaxy's Edge opened, they already had attractions at Disney World. I remember going to like a character breakfast with Darth Vader and Boba Fett and all these things, which was really awesome. And they do a show at Hollywood Studios with like the different characters. I mean, they even had this was before the sequels, but they even had prequel trilogy characters. They had C-3PO and R2-D2, Chewbacca.
Yeah, I remember. I saw it before they stopped doing that.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're leaning back into it. I know, like for the sequel, in the sequel trilogy, and Galaxy's Edge kind of aligned there as far as the timing. They were pushing more into that timeline, and they even had backstories and everything like that. But I'm glad that they're honoring the different eras of Star Wars. I'm glad that they're bringing that back, because I don't mind seeing the different characters from different eras walk around. I don't have to be that like locked into one era, but I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm hoping they'll even do the same for the prequels. So
last little bit here, and we can move on, but because we have much bigger fish to fry tonight. But I will say that I'm similar to you. I don't need to have one era only, and if I see Kylo Ren and Vader walking around, I'm not gonna be upset. It's almost like Lego Star Wars to me. I can differentiate in my mind, that these characters are just characters from Star Wars that I want to see interact, and they're there.
That immersed.
Yeah, it's part of the experience to just see Kylo Ren walking around. You see Darth Vader. You see maybe clone troopers versus stormtroopers, First Order troopers versus classic Imperial stormtroopers. I think that that's part of the beauty and charm of Star Wars. If you incorporate just as much as you can into that universe and into that world, to where there's something for every single fan. Because I think there are lots of kids who see Rey walking around that are like, oh my gosh, it's Rey. But if you have, people like us are walking in there, and, Kylo Ren is walking in there, we might not have the same reaction to seeing Kylo as if Darth freaking Vader was walking by. You know what I mean? So I think that if they just leaned into different ideas for Galaxy's Edge and making it kind of a more universal Star Wars theme instead of tying it down to just one era, that would probably suit it better. But I am glad they're like, hey, we're going to switch it up here, and we're going to go with the original trilogy for the while. So I'm excited to go pay it a visit once they bring it over here to Florida.
Definitely. And going back to the music, it's refreshing to hear more of John, more of John Williams makes everything better. So
yes, I'm 100%. All right, let's get into this. So we were going to, like I said before, we were going to talk about what will Filoni's first move, creative, in charge of the creative parts of Lucasfilm. What is our first movie going to be? Him and Brinwyn working together. We got a little bit of insight of that with Kathleen Kennedy's exit interview. Again, go read the full thing at Deadline, some of our Star Wars Newsnet coverage. But I'm going to put something out here on the screen real quick, because I do believe that, we should, take a look at some of what Kennedy was saying. And this is in regard to the upcoming, film slate and what that might look like under the new regime. So here are just a few of Kathleen Kennedy's comments. I've got to tread a bit carefully here. Jim Mangold and Bo Willman wrote an incredible script, but this is about Dawn of the Jedi, but it is definitely breaking the mold, and it's on hold. Taika Waititi has turned in a script that I think is hilarious and great. It's not just my decision, especially when I've got a foot out the door. Donald Glover has turned in a script, and as you read, Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver turned in a script written by Scott Burns. It was just great. Anything's a possibility if somebody's willing to take a risk. Okay. One more quote here that I think is very important. Mangold's is really on the back burner, as is Soderbergh's. I think the ones by Taika and Donald are still somewhat alive. That's just going to be really up to the new team to figure out. Dave, I know that Dave and Lin-Manuel are very much on board with what Simon Kinberg's doing, and that would be a new trilogy. And the timeline of things that takes you well into 2030 plus. So really, that's what's next. There's some stuff about Rian Johnson in here. And then one more little tidbit on Simon Kinberg, and we'll start this conversation. He's working right now. He wrote something that we read in August, and it was very good, but not there. We've pretty much upended the story, and then spent a great deal of time on the treatment, which he finished literally about 4 weeks ago. And this interview was in December, so keep that in mind. And it's a very detailed treatment, like 70 pages. And so he is expected to give us something in March. So quite the lowdown from Kathleen Kennedy in terms of what is going on in the sphere. Tom, what are initial takeaways and from that? And then let's just kind of go project by project and dissect what she said, along with maybe some of our own speculation and some of our own connecting the dots and kind of connecting that tissue that's been there for a while.
Well, this is like her State of the Union message. It's January. That's usually when that comes in the U.S. So it was so interesting. She was almost like I think someone said it on our in one of the stories. It's like, okay, here's a bunch of scripts. I'll see you guys later. Pick what you want to do. And, you know, now it's on you. But and obviously she's going to stay around to do some more producing. She's producing Starfighter, so you're going to see her name in the credits a lot. And she even alluded to if they need her for help with producing, she's around, which is great because that's really her strong suit, right?
And her passion.
And her passion and the relationships that she has can bring in the big guns basically for some of these projects. So, but yeah, let's go back. You know, pretty much everyone and their brother. I thought they were going to mention that you had a script that you submitted too. So,
you know, I have several scripts that I have been sitting on for quite some time. Unfortunately, I think myself and maybe Luke would be the only ones interested in ever them seeing the light of day. But personally, I want to start with Kimberg. I think that is the most relevant of everything that was discussed. And let me just put this on the screen, because there were two things that I thought I noticed immediately when I read the entire interview. And that was, she spent a lot of time talking about Simon Kinberg. She mentioned specifically that Dave and Brenwyn, she knew, were really into what Kinberg was doing and the story he was trying to tell. Plus, perhaps the idea that it was a trilogy appealed to them because it kind of set them up for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Now, one thing, the reason that Daisy Ridley is on the screen is because there were so many projects that were mentioned. There were two that were not mentioned the entire interview. One of them was the Daisy Ridley film that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy was going to be, directing at some point. That was not mentioned at all. There's no mention of Rey in this interview, which is quite confounding considering she's probably your most marketable, character in terms of characters they're probably moving forward with right now that the main public, the mainstream audience knows. So my immediate conclusion is that the Rey movie might be scrapped and they are readapting, because she talked about how she upended the entire Kinberg story a little bit, and they're reworking it, they're reshaping it. He has 70 pages. Something else is due in March. My guess is Daisy Ridley's character Rey is being reworked into whatever the Kinberg trilogy is to propel us into the future and start a brand new saga. And I don't know how I feel about that initially, but that's just kind of the vibe that I was getting from this, and just piecing together some of those context clues.
I completely agree with you. And I feel that I'm never going to say 100%, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen when Filoni and Brennan take over. However, it would make perfect sense. And I would say I'd be highly surprised if that's not the case. Because when you think about it, they have, it seemed like Filoni and Brennan are on board with what Kinberg's work and what he submitted so far. So you figure, like, we're going to have a movie this year, we have one next year, so something is going to probably come in 2028 or 2029. And I think what better way than to set up a trilogy to kind of take us into this new era, because I feel like we've been doing a lot of, like, and I said, not that I said that it's kind of hard for especially casual fans. We do a lot of era jumping. Mm-hmm. We get Ahsoka, then we get Andor, and we get Starfighter is going to be in the sequel trilogy era. But I think it makes perfect sense that they can open up this new era of Star Wars and they'll have some continuity with these stories so that people can follow them in a certain way and feel like we're starting fresh with a new trilogy. Right. So I think that that's going to come next. That's, it's funny because when we had the conversation this morning, I didn't think it would be Kinberg's movie. I thought it'd be Filoni's movie, but there was no mention of it at all. That
was interesting. That was the other movie that didn't get mentioned at all, was the Filoni movie, and we'll talk about that. But this is what is interesting to me. I was very excited about the prospect of a Rey movie because, I felt like, the trilogy, the sequel trilogy, the end of that was essentially Rey coming into her prime. And it was very similar to the original trilogy where Luke is left, and it seems like Luke is in his prime, right? And we are excited to see what Luke is going to do in the future. What does prime Luke do? We get a brief look at that in The Mandalorian Season 2. 2.
Right.
And there are countless Legends books that have amazing Luke stories that you should all go read if you're interested in that sort of thing. I've read many of them myself, and I love classic Luke. But I think that, yourself, myself, there was a lot of us that were wishing to get just a little bit more of Luke in that sequel trilogy. I love The Last Jedi, big Last Jedi fan. I know you are as well. So when Rey is at the end of this book and she has the keys to the kingdom, she has R2 with her. She's got BB-8. She's got the Skywalker sabers. She's got the ancient sacred Jedi text. She's got the Falcon. She has everything. So what is this going to mean? I'm worried with this trilogy, if the Rey movie is scrapped, which I thought was going to be kind of like prime Rey rebuilding the Jedi Order, this new Jedi Order movie. What I'm worried is that Rey suddenly becomes like old Ben in A New Hope, and they're going to have her in this like first movie as this tertiary mentor like character that just fades to the background after the first movie and lets the new generation take over and move forward in like a new saga, which again, I'm fine with Star Wars completely moving forward. It's just, I feel like almost we got Rey and Prime, like they're setting up for that new Jedi Order. I would kind of want to see Prime Rey, and I'm just worried that might not happen if this has been readapted. It definitely still could. But there is part of me that worries that we're going to try to kill two birds with one stone, and it's not quite going to pay off the way that a lot of people, I think, who are yearning for that new Jedi Order story with Prime Rey, that maybe never got it with Prime Luke, are just maybe not going to get.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But I think that if, we don't really know the timeline of Kinberg's films. So as far as Starfighter, I think is like kind of similar to Real Time between Rise of Skywalker and like 5 or 6 years, something like that. So I wonder if Kinberg's film, I know the Rey movie was supposed to be like 15 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker. So we may get the Prime Rey. And when you think about it, I was always hoping as a kid after Return of the Jedi ended that we'd get another trilogy with the big three kind of in their prime and what happened next.
Right.
And I feel like we could get that with Rey, and I would like to see that, honestly. I know a lot of fans may not be on board with that, but I want to see that. I think that she is the face of the future of Star Wars. I don't know how Starfighter is going to change that. Kathleen Kennedy did say in the interview that is just a one-off film. But
multiple times was very clear, like this is a standalone movie.
But they like the young actor in it, and she said that maybe, who knows, they might.
Spoilers. It was like spoilers. I'm like, oh, so the kid is. I mean, it is Star Wars. It is Star Wars, and it is Disney. So like, I wasn't expecting the kid to get killed in the movie.
Revenge of the Sith. It's not Revenge.
Right. It's not Revenge of the Sith. I wasn't really, but like that was basically like, all right, don't worry, he's gonna survive. He's gonna make it. Like, is Ryan Gosling the one that really is gonna?
Yeah. I don't know about that, but yeah, I'm on board for it. I think that Filoni's worked with Kinberg before, with Rebels, so I think that they have a good relationship. As far as I know, I don't know, but it sounds like Brennan and Filoni are keen on what Kinberg is doing. So I'm curious to see. I in my opinion, I think yes, it's going to be about Rey. I think it's going to be a trilogy, and I think that's coming after Starfighter.
And I think that it would not shock me at all if this movie is put into production by the end of the year. We talked last week that there is a lot of pressure probably on them to put a movie into production. And I'll just put this comment on here. Now, a lot of people are glad Kathleen Kennedy is gone. And, I'm perfectly fine with anyone who wants to comment saying they are glad that there is a change in leadership. I think like we all agree maybe that the time has definitely come for that. But I want to push back a little bit on how we can't entrust Filoni, whose strength isn't live action Star Wars content. I want to push back on that a little bit, not because the point isn't valid, because the point is absolutely valid that Dave Filoni has not spent a lot of time in the live action sphere. But in the article, I think it's important to note that Kathleen Kennedy said that, even making Rogue One, she had Dave there by her side the entire time. Dave is working very closely with her on a lot of these live action projects, these movies. And also, he was very involved in The Mandalorian. He's now has directing experience with that and with Ahsoka. He's written Ahsoka season 2. Let's see how that goes. And then let's also remember, he's in charge of the creative side. He's in charge of getting the vision, the projects going, moving forward. And Kathleen Kennedy is staying on to help produce these movies. And I think that's an important role to know, that it's not like he's just being thrown out to the wolves and it's like, here you go. You have never made a movie. You're on your own now. I think it's like we have someone like Kathleen Kennedy who's probably going to stay and help with those first few films and the production, especially this Kinberg one, because it sounds like she was the one who kind of got him on board in the first place. And so if she's staying on to help with that aspect, it gives me more confidence that this is going to be a solid, like slow burn for him. But to say that there are no concerns would not be true, because there are definitely, some risks involved with someone being, in charge of this side of Lucasfilm that, hasn't had any experience, being a producer, a director, or a writer on a major feature film.
Yeah, I mean, it is a valid point. I concede to that. His experience is limited in that sense, but he has had a good mentorship with some of the filmmakers that have made some of the movies in the last, I guess, several years. That said, I feel like in his new role, he's not going to be able to do it all anyway. So I think he's going to need a lot of help. I don't know if he's going to be directing any of the films, other than that one that he might, who knows if he's going to get that film that, we talked about to tie up the New Republic era series, but he may not be that involved with the day-to-day and stuff, and he's probably going to be he's going to need to be surrounded by good people, as far as I know his strengths and his weaknesses. It is pretty apparent, and I think he's a great idea guy, and I think his role is going to allow him to thrive with that. But who knows? We'll see how this unfolds over the next several years.
So one more comment here, and then we'll move on to like our next movie. They can't spoil. This is from Michael Hinshaw. They can't spoil Starfighter. Levy said the last act had to be reworked. Very likely Rey plays a small part at the end of Starfighter that rolls into whatever happens after that. Tom, you've been banging the drum for Rey as in Starfighter since the very beginning. Like, you think that she was going to be a part, or you felt like she really had to. I kind of pushed back against you on that for a long time. But then like recently, with the news about the lightsaber duels that are going to be filmed by Tom Cruise, of course, and the reworking of the last act to kind of fit something, the timeline kind of makes sense that maybe this is a way for them to really bridge into the future, and Rey is definitely a person to do that, coming in at the end, perhaps helping, or there's hints at her throughout the movie. She comes with a lightsaber duel. I totally think that this makes a lot of sense. And like you mentioned before, and I'll let you kind of finish up our talk on this, Starfighter just feels like the it movie right now for Star Wars. It is, all of these other projects are exciting to talk about. Mandalorian and Grogu comes out in 128 days, but here we are with the Rey movie, or sorry, the Starfighter movie. And that just feels like there's just an electricity around it right now that I think if you talk to any Star Wars fan that's really in the know of these things, like they feel it, they're ready for it, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I feel like it just makes sense. She is, to me, I feel that Rey is the face of this sequel era. So just as Luke was in the, the original trilogy and like that New Republic era, when he came into Mandalorian, I was thrilled, but it also made so much sense because he was the guy, he was the Jedi then. And I feel like that's Rey now. Depending on, I know fans have very strong opinions about this, but this is just what I see. So unless something is upended in Starfighter, I think that they will probably introduce her again in that movie. And we could be totally off base and
watch we're watching Starfighter now. We're gonna be waiting for Rey to come in at the end, and she never does, and we're like, oh, okay, like okay, like that was the movie. We're good. We had a great time. But
we'll make some friendly wagers maybe around when Starfighter gets released.
I love a good friendly wager, Tom. Like I make friendly wagers all the time.
it'd be great. Hopefully we both make it out to Celebration. We'll be closer to it and maybe get more information about it.
Oh, yes.
Which would be really cool. But yeah, I mean, right now that's what I'm saying, and that's where I stand. I could be completely wrong, so we'll see what happens.
So there we are. Our prediction right now, what it seems like, is that Simon Kinberg, he's got the inside track to going into production this year. Now, Tom, there are real Star Wars projects, very real ones that we could talk about right now. But there's something very near and dear to my heart that I want to bring up. And that is the hunt for Ben Solo. Okay, so Kathleen Kennedy did not have to do this. So if you read the article, read the interview, the person interviewing Kathleen Kennedy did not mention the Steven Soderbergh project, did not mention the hunt for Ben Solo in any questioning or prodding. She went out of her way to say it. And I don't know if you heard, but Steven Soderbergh made this, and he made this movie. And there was a very key part that she said at the end, after she kind of talked about, that it was, what was it? Exactly. It was like, there are risks. It's there if someone's willing to take a risk. There are projects, the ideas are there, the scripts are there if you're willing to take risks. And she even had a whole little monologue in the interview about the importance of risk taking in Hollywood, the importance of those risks existing. So, and people just going on a limb and taking a chance nowadays. What better way, Tom, than to reignite and ignite the fires and fill the flames of Hunt for Ben Solo, Tom? What is a better way?
I may be basic, but this is the one movie I'm hoping gets made. This is the one I want to see. I love Rey, but if I have a choice, I want this movie made. I was like reading the article from Deadline, and I was like Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. So, and she said the script was great. I quote, really great. So, it was funny how, if you read between the lines, and I don't want to be too much like that, but she was commenting on the scripts. She said things about Mangle, or Bo Willman and Mangle's script, said that it was incredible. But we'll get to that. And saying certain things. But she said this script was really great, and seemed like the people involved still want it. And the fans, I think, are going to be clamoring for it because they feel like it's something that was stolen from them. Mm-hmm. So I mean, how great. I think Filoni, one thing you could say about him is I feel like he'll do his own thing. He'll do what he wants. I feel like he does have his finger on the pulse of what the fans want as a fan himself. Yeah. So here's hoping. We'll see what happens.
So there is such a fervor in the fandom around this project. I think still, like, if this were to get reignited, I think more than any other of the projects out there, if they were to come out and say, like, this is what we're going to do, I think this would build the biggest, like, clamor, that you possibly could. And when she said, like, if they're willing to take risks, you're going to have new leadership in Lucasfilm. You have new leadership with Disney that's going to happen this year as well. Most people that are stepping into these roles are probably very risk averse, right? Like, a lot of times they're very risk averse, because if you do something and it goes completely poorly, that sets you back quite a bit if you don't have like a proven track record of success. But hear me out, Tom. What a better way to reignite the Star Wars fandom, to reignite a fandom that has felt at times betrayed by its leaders, the fandom that has felt maybe shortchanged in some areas, a fandom that for once seemed to be united around a cause, and that was the hunt for Ben Solo. You had Adam Driver, a world-class actor that was excited to come back. You have Steven Soderbergh, an incredible director, ready to go. We had a script, a production timeline. And what if we were to say, we're bringing this back, so you've listened to the fans directly here that are saying they really want this, and you're like, you know what, we're gonna make this happen. Disney reverses course, says, hey, let's go for it. I'm going to assume that Dave was all about this in the beginning. Adam Driver, I don't think he's doing anything right now. Like, I'm sure, what is he up to? I haven't heard about him being in something right now. Steven Soderbergh commented on this. Let's get them together again and make this happen. Take a risk, really put yourself out there. Tell a really weird, trippy Star Wars movie with Adam Driver. Bring Daisy in, make this happen. It will not lessen the impact of the saga if you tell it correctly. It will not.
It can only go up with especially how a lot of fans have felt about the sequel trilogy. And let me blow your mind for a second here. What if Kinberg's trilogy, this is the first movie?
No, it's stop. You can't do that to me, Dom. You can't do
That's
that.
why he rewrote it, because he adapted what's his name? Scott Burns' script.
Oh, Scott Burns, yeah.
And Soderbergh's going to direct it.
So that would be, if that happened, I'm just saying, if that were to happen, we would be doing an emergency pod. Like, we would be getting on and doing a live emergency pod. We would not be waiting for Thursday night.
I'd have to fly down to meet you in person and do it.
We're doing a live pod, like everyone here. I'll buy everyone's plane tickets. We're making it happen. We would do an emergency pod. Like, we're getting on that day, whatever it is. Like, that is the way it would happen, because that would just blow my mind. Like, absolute cinema, already hands in the air. But on a very serious note, the fact that she did go out of her way to mention it makes me think that they are listening to what's out there.
Right.
And it's not necessarily, I don't know if it was by chance that all of this has been circulating recently. And I think there's still a chance that this could happen. I'm not willing to just pack my bags on this yet. And I think let's move into this other. Are you willing to move into another one?
Yeah, let's go. We had a question in the.
Yes, I do see the question in the comments. I do want to answer those. Probably wait towards the end of the show to answer those, since those aren't film-related questions. But at Paula1966, we will talk about that towards the end, 100%. But I'm going to put this on the screen. This was fascinating to me right here. Is that, let's start with Mangold, who's on the left there. Kennedy put Mangold's movie in the same box as Soderbergh's.
Right.
And to me, that does a lot more for Soderbergh's film than it does for Mangold's film, because she's going out of her way to mention it, versus Mangold's film, she was like, Soderbergh and Mangold's film, those are just firmly on hold. Those three words are key: firmly on hold. Miguel said it best in our Discord this evening, where he said once Mangold signed that Paramount deal, it was like this movie was on ice. Dawn of the Jedi was on ice. They iced it. It's probably on hold for the foreseeable future. I don't know if this is one that'll ever get made, and that breaks my heart, because I felt like going back to, quote unquote, the Dawn of the Jedi, right. And having Beau Willimon, who wrote some of the best stuff from Andor, to work with a world-class, solid director like Mangold. I felt like this was going to be a really just deep, almost like a spiritual journey type film. And I'm excited about the prospect of it happening someday, but I am a little bit discouraged it ever will at this point.
I feel like this is their second attempt, right, to go in that direction, because Benioff and Weiss, like when they were hired to make, I guess, a series of films, well, I don't know if it was officially announced what it would be, but everyone speculated with their work in Game of Thrones that it would be a Dawn of the Jedi type Old Republic film. So I feel like that era is kind of on the radar, but it looks like they haven't really gotten there yet. And I mean, she said the script was incredible. She said it was, what did she say? It was too bold? It breaks the mold. It breaks the mold.
Breaks the mold.
So I don't know what that means. She didn't really elaborate on that. I'm sure some people will probably take it in a negative way, that it breaks the mold. Oh, they don't want to take a big risk or a big swing. She was talking about taking risks, but we don't know what it was. I don't know if maybe when it's on hold, maybe it just doesn't fit in their plan for the next several years.
It's very different. It's like the Taika movie, I think it's going to would be different. And, franchises that don't change, franchises that don't adapt are franchises that die.
Right.
And Star Wars needs to adapt. It needs to change. It needs to continue to evolve. And I thought this would have been a fun movie that I think would have helped it get there.
Totally.
You know what I find fascinating about this picture, Tom? I'm sure you can guess.
Right. No mention of um, the Ray movie.
So we have Shermino Bechinoy on my far right now, on the far. And then you have Dave Filoni in the middle, Mangold on Filoni's right. And I don't know if any of these movies are going to get made. It is crazy to think that these three were brought out on a celebration stage, the main panel. This is the future of Star Wars. Daisy Ridley is brought out. They were talking about the new Jedi Order movie. No mention of it in Kathy Kinney's interview. We talked about that with the Kimber conversation. No mention of Dave Filoni's movie. Of course, maybe that's she wants to let Dave kind of have, because I'm sure there's going to be a sit down interview with Dave at some point. Like that has to happen.
Mhm.
And perhaps he goes into that more during then, but there's no mention of it here. And then she firmly said Mangold's movie is just on hold. It is wild to think that I was on my way to school to teach ELA that day. And I called one of my buddies because I was, I was watching the Star Wars Celebration news because it was,
Right.
overseas. So it was so early and it was early in the morning. And I was calling him. I'm like, Daisy's back. Like they're bringing her back. There's new Jedi Order. We're going all the way back to Dawn of the Jedi. Filoni's doing a movie. And I was screaming. I was so excited about it. And guess what, Tom? None of that matters at this point. None of it
It feels like a
matters.
million years ago, right?
But it makes it seem frustrating because it's like, can we believe anything that happens on the celebration stage anymore? Albeit, Ryan Gosling, Sean Levy came out, and that movie's already done filming. So it's like maybe they have regained our trust a little. But it is wild to see this image now in retrospect and think back on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back, so that was 2023, right? And then
Yes.
2020 was when they announced Lando and all those other things that, I mean, some of them did happen, Obi-Wan happened, Ahsoka happened, but it's so strange that it was like, and it kind of like they didn't even address it in some ways, that like Ryan Johnson, they kind of never really said anything. I mean, I think it was very interesting. I don't know if you want to get there yet, but it was very interesting what she said about him. But I think like him, and she talked about the Netflix deal, I think the Paramount deal did really kind of make an impact with James Mangold. So that's definitely, and it's part of the industry, it's these things happen,
Well, then there was what she said about Ryan was when Ryan Johnson signed that Netflix deal, and she did admit that she felt like some of the negativity and the backlash to The Last Jedi did affect him and not wanting to pursue Star Wars anymore, which is a shame because I think that he's a brilliant storyteller and I love The Last Jedi. I understand why people don't necessarily love that story, but I think if you gave him like a blank slate to work with, like we've seen with these Knives Out movies, I think he would do a tremendous job with Star Wars. But it is interesting. She went out of her way to say, not everyone wants to commit to the time and effort and energy it takes to make a Star Wars movie. She said, this is 3 to 5 years of your life that you are devoting to this, given the time and care that goes into them. She talked about how much energy, goes into it. These are very difficult movies to make. When you think about 50 years of fandom that goes into making a movie, you can't just go in and willy-nilly make a Star Wars movie. There are 50 years of continuity. There's 50 years of expectations. There's 50 years of lore. There's 50 years of tradition that goes into making these movies. And it is not for the weak, you know what I mean? So
it's a heavy burden.
It's a heavy burden. And I totally get why some filmmakers who maybe love Star Wars, but like, I don't want to make a Star Wars. Like, I'll do my own thing.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan he's waxed pretty, like, I would say, soft on his experience, but these things do take their toll. Even Lucas admitted. I mean, that kind of unfortunately drove him out of the business. Well, I don't want to say that. I mean, he had other things he wanted to do, but he was tired of putting all that effort in, and then just everything was so scrutinized and so like, and if that stuff does get back to you, I mean, he was also, beat up by the critics in a lot of ways. Like Ryan Johnson, I feel like even though Last Jedi, whatever you say, however you feel about
Right.
it, it was critically received pretty well. Um, and as most of his movies were actually, and I love his Knives Out films. I'm a huge fan of that.
I still need to
Um,
watch
oh, you got to
the
see
third
it.
one.
It's really good. It's really good. Um, and what was I saying? But like, I'm sure in the beginning that was maybe a factor for him. I mean, because Kennedy is seeing it. She's there to see day to day, and he's been very gracious recently about that and
Mhm.
about fandom. But I think it's tough when you're going through it. I mean, because people were like, he would post about other movies he was making. People still post about that movie.
Right.
Um, they bring it up like where it's not even necessary. And then I was watching a review of Knives Out, and the guy was like talking, the new one was talking about how much he loved it, but I'll never forgive him for ruining Luke Skywalker. I'm like, guys, it's just so strange. But like,
Mhm.
I understand how that could. I don't hold that against him. And people are like, well, he's changing his tune, like because he was a little more salty about it back then. But like,
Mhm.
you know, they're human beings.
Well, and a lot of people look back and think more fondly of things, or are able to make peace with certain aspects of relationships or conflict over time. I think that is what healthy people do. Like that's called growth as
Right.
humans, is being able to, if maybe he was salty and really, attacking, like when you think about what it takes to direct a movie and create something, and to have, Joe Schmo online tell you that you assassinated their favorite character and you suck and you're the worst. Like, you know what? I get pissed off when I'm coaching middle school basketball and some random person at Walmart the other day told me that he didn't like the play call. This happened to me once. Like some random person at Walmart who was like I don't know, it was like someone like, it wasn't even like a parent or something. Like, I don't mind if parents want to
Right.
talk to me about stuff. It wasn't even a parent, just some random person had a problem with a play call. And I'm like, and I got defensive,
Listen, we can go here.
later when I'm talking to Janelle. I'm like, are you serious? This person could come with me. But at the same time, now I'm like, you know what? I'm glad that there are people passionate about something, even if it's the school. But like with Ryan's, like, of course he's gonna be passionate and come out. So
Right.
now it's been years. I understand
And
why he's maybe able to take a wider look at this now.
I don't think he was ever, I think salty was a strong word to use. He was maybe a little more defensive in the beginning,
Yeah.
but, you know, he really, we could talk about this ad nauseum, but like, yeah, I mean, so I think it's sad in a way because he's
Mhm.
an amazing filmmaker. I think he does excel at his own creations.
Mhm.
Throwing him in the middle film in a franchise that's been around for almost 50 years, it's really difficult. So, and like I said, I'm a fan of that film, but I understand, even though I like it, I understand why people don't.
Absolutely.
I understand that like people make good points why they don't like it, so I understand that. But like, I think if he had his own film or trilogy to do, I think it would be a different experience. And I feel,
Mhm.
it's interesting. That's why I'm really looking forward to Starfighter because I feel like it's a fresh beginning. You're not using, as far as I know, legacy characters that have been around. Obviously, if we
Mhm.
say Ray shows up at the end, but that's probably going to be very, very, very like small cameo, almost like a post-credit scene type
Yeah.
thing. I feel. Um, so it's nice to get a fresh start, and I think
Like,
that
I'm starting to
people,
think it could be just, the kid being delivered to Ray. Like, you're trying to get him somewhere
yeah,
safe, and it turns out it's, like, Ray is who ends up being that caretaker for him or something. But it is just interesting when you look up here on the screen and see these, individuals that we thought we were getting movies from. We felt pretty confident about these, and there was a point in time, I wanna say about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, where when we were talking about what's the next Star Wars movie that's in production, like, a lot like this Heir to the Empire, Dawn of the Jedi movie with Mangold, that was one that was circulating, as it had a lot of momentum and some
yeah,
steam behind it that might get done, and it just, iced. Let's talk about Filoni real fast, and then we'll
yeah,
move on to a couple of the final projects. Dave Filoni, Heir to the Empire, this Heir to the Empire movie that is the Filoni verse culmination movie that is going to take place. No mention of it in the article, in the interview. In the interview, no mention of it. There could be very strategic reasons for that, given
there was
that I
more mention of
imagine
Lando than that.
there was more mention of Lando, which is so sad. But I will say perhaps Dave has a sit down interview coming out soon, and he talks directly about this, and Kathleen Kennedy didn't want to maybe take away his thunder, steal his thunder, spoil anything, or speak into what Dave's going to say himself. However, it is still telling that that's not mentioned at all. Like, it is interesting to think that, is this going to be a project that doesn't happen? Is it going to turn into some sort of Disney Plus show? Is it going to be a Disney Plus special event? I'm not sure. I'm curious what your thoughts are. If I had to bet, I'd still bet that he finds a way to get this done.
Yeah, I mean, he has the keys to the kingdom now, right? Getting the Disney Plus event, I find very appealing. I think that's what I would prefer. I feel like Mandalorian and Grogu, I'm going to be there opening day, obviously, like everyone, but I wouldn't have minded if they kept it as season 4 and that was going to come out on Disney Plus. It felt like it was, I don't know, it just was in that universe. And then we're looking forward to Starfighter, which is a big sweeping film coming out. So I think it's a good question to have, because we don't know of anything else coming out other than
Ahsoka season 2.
Ahsoka season 2, as far as live action. I know that the Maul show is going to come soon.
Do you think they're waiting longer to see what Mando does at the box office before they make a decision on some of this? Like, if Mando has a more than modest box, I don't not necessarily like this grand slam crazy box office, but if it's like really solid and they feel very comfortable with the profit margins and what they made off of it, and then Ahsoka season 2, that sets them up to maybe saying, okay, maybe this is the next movie, and then Ahsoka season 2 is received well. Do you think that maybe makes them more apt to be like, all right, we're going to put this movie out there next and get this going so we can kind of wrap up this story? Because, if Mando and Grogu does well in the theaters, box office wise, it's not inconceivable that you could draw some fans in with those two characters again, slap the Millennium Falcon in a trailer, and use have Chewie in a trailer, have R2, 3PO. You have some of those legacy characters that could make appearances in some fashion. I know we're both big recasting people. I don't know if they would go that direction, to be honest, but I do wonder if Mando and Grogu does well, that maybe is a sign for them that, like, hey, if Mando and Grogu does well, this movie that, we're cooking with this culmination event should be able to exceed that for sure.
I have a feeling, yes, I 100% agree that if Mandalorian does well at the box office, we're going to see more of, or there's a greater chance that we're going to see or the Filoni verse, I guess, on the big screen. If it doesn't, it's hard for me to imagine it being like poor, but if it has like a solo type reception, then I don't know what's going to be. Ahsoka's already coming to Disney Plus later in the year, supposedly. So I don't know what they're going to do at that point. I mean, if it depends. I have a feeling it's been the first Star Wars film in 6-7 years, so it's going to be, I think, obviously we're going to be there, but like, is it going to have the same draw? Do people even know it's happening? Like the casual fans, we talked about this. So that's going to be interesting to see. I have a feeling in the next several weeks, when they're kind of situated in the new position, there's probably going to be a couple of sit-down interviews. We're going to probably get another piece on them and what their vision is. Maybe hopefully we'll get some more clarity on what's going to be going forward. So maybe we won't have to wait till Celebration to get some of these answers. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. But
do you think that if, let's say, Mando and Grogu is not the greatest, box office, but it's modest, it's solid, I'm just wondering if this could just turn into, hey, we're going to do a 4-part Disney Plus special, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, 3-part, whatever you want to do, 2 parts. I'm getting bogged down on the parts here. It doesn't really matter, but is this going to turn into some sort of Disney Plus special event where we are, wrapping up these characters that have been on the the main screen of our TVs for a while, and we're going to just keep it there. And you know what, Mando and Grogu, not saying it was a mistake to put you in theaters, but hey, we're going to scale back down to where these characters started and just finish that story there rather than a movie. Like that to me seems like a reasonable option as well.
One thing I don't want it to be a movie, then a TV show, then a movie, then a TV show, and we have to
Right.
follow all of that, because I think that's gonna you're getting into Marvel territory there, and I
Yeah.
think the fatigue is going to be real. So you feel like you have to go and I mean, obviously, we'll know it all backwards and forwards, but for the
Yeah.
casual fan, I have a friend that she's a very casual fan, and she hasn't seen Mandalorian. She hasn't
Mhm.
seen some of obviously not the animated shows. So it's like, are you going to feel like, do I have to, go through hours of homework or like watch 30
Mhm.
YouTube videos to watch this? I hope they stick with one or the other.
Yeah.
If
I mean, if
Mandalorian
it's a
doesn't go
success, it's gonna go if it's a success, we're gonna be talking about another Mando movie, I think, let alone the Dave
probably,
Filoni movie. I think we're probably talking about another Mando movie.
most likely, depending on how they end this one, I don't know how far they want to carry this character on, but I think
Oh, you know
Grogu
how
at
milk
least
it
is
is.
here for the long haul. So
So you mentioned casual fans and what they are aware of in terms of Star Wars right now. I forget sometimes that the casual fan doesn't follow these things as closely as we do, to where someone like sent me when they saw the Deadline article, they saw, that news was everywhere today, this Deadline interview this evening and with Kathleen Kennedy, and they sent it to me. It's like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? Like, I'm really excited for Dave Filoni, and this is wild Star Wars news. But when, the article dropped featuring Kathleen Kennedy, I'm just sitting there going, okay, yep, there it is. We were waiting for this. And then when the Dave Filoni stuff came out last week, I was like, okay, yep, been knowing about this for years now, that he's probably the future. And you just forget that so many people don't even know this, and there's probably so many people that go see Star Wars movies in theaters, and if you ask them who runs Lucasfilm, they might not even be able to tell you who Kathleen Kennedy is. And
right,
at the end of the day, what matters is just the stories that make it to the screen, and how they do in the box office, because that's frankly the business now, is just what we can get out there. But let's talk about one more here, because I'll be honest, Tom, I'm not giving Lando the time of day. She mentioned Lando. She said that every single person, she said, no, like, it is important for us to note this, okay? You mentioned it before we started, but it is important for us to say, she mentioned every single Star Wars project. Great script. I love this script. You absolutely killed it with the script. And then when she goes, so, Donald Glover, he turned in a script for Lando. Just he turned one in, which code for me is like, this piece of garbage that I got on my plate. Like, I tossed it to him. I jest. I'm not saying that it was a piece of garbage, but it was funny when you read it fully and you go, man, she thought this was amazing. It was like Oprah handing out cars to every single person who turned in a Star Wars script, and then Donald Glover like comes up and it's like, here's a Hot Wheel. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it felt like.
yeah. I mean, I love Donald Glover, and I would totally be on board with a Lando film. It'd have to have Billy D. Williams in it at some point, though. They'd have to get him back if he can still do it. But I like Donald Glover's portrayal of Lando. I don't know if I really need that, but if they are bringing Billy D. Williams back, I definitely will be interested.
Don't
But
you think that it works best if he's in it, like, and he just has a voiceover, like it's a very quick cameo at
yeah,
the beginning, and he's like, all right, it's
I'd
time for me
allow
to finish
that.
the Calrissian Chronicles, chapter 5. You know what I mean? Like, kind of
I'd
just play
allow
off the
that.
solo thing.
But yeah, I mean, Taika Waititi, I didn't know he was that far in the process that he already handed. I mean, I've heard rumors about that, but she said it was hilarious. And she said it's so like Donald Glover and Taika Waititi, they're somewhat alive, is her words. So it's interesting. I'm looking forward to, like I said, hearing more. I feel like
Yeah.
we're getting so much out of her with this, like it was interesting. Like, we've had all these questions, and I felt like they did a really good job in the interview, like, kind of getting this out of her. And she's like,
Yeah.
he's leaving. It's like the guy who's it's last week, at work, and he's like, yeah, I'll tell you where all the bodies are hidden. So
It's like, what does somewhat alive mean? Like, what does that mean? What is
I'm
somewhat
somewhat alive.
alive? I'm somewhat alive.
I
That's
like
how I feel. That's how I'm gonna feel when basketball season is over. I'm gonna be somewhat alive by the end of this thing. Even though this is my favorite time of year. But no, so I thought it was interesting. I've honestly really wondered what a Taika movie looks like for Star Wars. And I put him and Sean Levy together up here because I just think it's interesting. You put those two up there. Sean got his movie going. We're still waiting for to see if Taika's can ever happen. I think that I think Taika's in his era of he's gonna make his Star Wars movie and does not give two rips what anyone thinks. Like if it is a major flop, I think he's gonna be like, I don't care. Like I'm excited. I got to tell my story. And you throw in the fact that you got I forget the name of the guy, but it's like or the name of the writer, but it's the person who wrote Poor Things. And you throw in a Taika Waititi with someone who would come up with a script and write Poor Things. That has to just be an absolutely bonkers film waiting to happen.
I love some of
Trippy.
Taika's work. I really do. I love Jojo Rabbit. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. And I love Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a very entertaining movie. It's one of my favorite Marvel films. And but then I wasn't too hip on Love and Thunder, so like it's interesting. So I'm so curious to see what he would do with Star Wars. So that's something. I mean, I would just be really up for that because it feels like also that they have really he spent a lot of time on it, because we've heard about this for the last 6 years. Five and a half, a little over 5 years, we heard about Taika Waititi working on a film. So I'm curious to see in that time what he's come up with.
I think I know what it is. I'll be honest. It is similar to Poor Things, as Emma Stone's character, this coming of age, just learning about the world. It's just literally it's going to be Taika voicing an IG unit that is exploring the galaxy. There's a simple droid making its way in the universe, and it's just going to be there. They're going to merge droid story, and it's just going to be IG-12 instead of IG-11. Or I guess if this takes place before Mando, it's going to be IG-10 instead of IG-11. And they're going to be walking around, avoiding self-destructing until the last possible moment. And then he's going to self-destruct, and the same manufacturer is going to be heartbroken. He's going to create IG-12. There it is, a droid story featuring Taika Waititi's IG-10. Nailed it. All right, let's talk about one last movie before we wrap up with a few quick hitters here. And that's The Mandalorian and Grogu, which she did mention. She said that when she got back, she's doing this interview in December. And she said the first thing she was doing when she got back was to sit down with Jon Favreau and talk about this film. It is coming on crunch time to really get people excited and interested in this film. I still don't think anyone knows about it. I think that there is a growing population that are looking forward to it. I say that anecdotally, though, because I'm sure that I am much more in the weeds of Star Wars than most people. So on TikTok, every single morning, I post a 100 and blank days until the Mandalorian. Like I post a little Mandalorian hype video every day. And each day, I feel like I get a few more people like that might comment something like, "Oh, I'm excited for this movie," or "looking forward to this," or some people that will comment like, "I see these, and it hypes me up each day. I look forward to these," and I feel like it's slowly starting to take on like a little bit more excitement in the hearts of fans, just because they're excited to see these two characters on their screen. But there is a deep, I told you, I've been riding the roller coaster with this. And right now I'm on, the treacherous downfall instead of the excitement of going up. Maybe I'm like a little bit scared and like I'm going down and maybe it's not hitting the same. And I'm just a little bit terrified right now of what's going to happen when this hits theaters. I just really don't want to see a major flop. I really don't want to see it. And I'm worried we might.
It's interesting. So in the article from Deadline, I didn't really get the love from her for this movie. And, it depends. I mean, I could be reading between the lines.
It got Lando love.
None of that either, unfortunately. But this movie is actually coming out. She wasn't just talking about something that may or may not be in development, or that is an idea
Right.
that we were kicking around. This movie's coming out in a few months. Like, you have the day, you have the count. So I don't see the enthusiasm even at Lucasfilm for it. So that's probably going to change. I know Dave Filoni is going to probably push hard because now that he's in control. But if this movie flops really bad, it's going to be bad that she left, and this is the first thing that came out. Now, they can be like some presidents and blame the previous administration all they want, but I don't know. Like, I think it's almost like tripping out of the gate, in a way.
Mhm. Do
So
you think they don't like, it doesn't matter as much to them, it's perceived to not matter as much as them because they genuinely aren't worried either way? Like, if it's a big success, like, that's awesome, like, we're really excited. If it's not, you know what? We're not that really worried about it because we feel so good about what we have in Starfighter, and we're gonna focus all of our attention there.
yeah, I hate that they have to compete with each other. Whenever a
Like, this
Star
is
Wars
just
film was
a
coming out,
stopgap.
yeah, whenever Star Wars was coming out in the past, it was always like the next movie, the next movie. It
Mhm.
wasn't like when Force Awakens came out. I was like, oh, I can't wait for Episode 9.
Right.
I did
So
feel a
true.
little bit of that when Rogue One came out. Before it came out, and I love that film. It's incredible. But before, I remember going to see Rogue One, and I was talking to my daughter, and I'm like, I really want to see Episode 8. That's the one I
Mhm.
really want to see because that it's the story, the continuity and everything. And I was blown away by Rogue One. So hopefully that's the case here. I think when you talked about original trilogy characters, I have a very strong feeling we're going to see at least the Falcon in this movie. I think that they're going to somehow bring in, I have my fanboy predictions, which is just for me and my like crazy, like fanboying, like type way. But
Right.
I think they're going to have to throw something in there to get people like really excited for it. But
Mhm.
it's hard to tell. It could be hit or miss. It could start slow and then build up. I have to look at what's coming out. There's a very packed summer movie
Absolutely.
uh, scene this year.
Mhm.
So like with Solo, it kind of got destroyed after like Endgame came out. Like, what was it, like right around the time? So
100%.
um, so that's
Or was
something
it
to
it was Infinity War with Solo.
into, I guess, at that
It was
time. Yeah.
sandwich. Well, that's what I'm saying. I get Solo vibes from this project in terms of
Same.
general buzz, because it's different though, because there is no Avengers that we're competing with here as Star Wars fans. Like, there's no Avengers that Solo was competing with, and I am worried that we're getting a Solo like treatment here in terms of fan buzz, even when there's really nothing competing with it that weekend. But I'm curious. Here's the problem, is that it feels like most people aren't aware of this movie, but it's also being treated like we had to get a movie out because it's been so long and we have struggled and failed to do so. So we just are going to throw this out there. We're just going to throw it out there. It doesn't really matter. We'll probably make the same amount of money doing this as we would doing, whatever else we could throw out there. So why not just put our two iconic characters on the big screen? And that's what it kind of feels like. I think they're treating it that way. But again, like you said, we're going to be there opening night. You bet your
Yeah,
butt be there opening night, ready to go. I'm
totally.
excited.
I feel like when I'm sitting in that chair, I'm going to forget this whole conversation because I'm going to be so excited.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
it's interesting. I guess they had, excuse me, I guess they had to really go for solid, like something that was dependable that they could get a win. Now, what hurt it a little bit too is that season 3 was a little bit, had a mixed reception. So
Right.
I think people have forgotten about that. Like, it's interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing that again when we do the rewatch for those episodes. But yeah, it's a mystery. It's interesting to see what the next, I think, couple of months are going to be very interesting because I think Filoni and Brennan are going to like be maybe laying out their game plan or maybe making some announcements. We don't have a celebration this year, so we'll see how much
Mm,
we're going to get, but they're going to be pushing hard for this movie at
mm,
come March, April, May. So
absolutely. So overall, there's a couple more things I want to hit on. She did talk about Solo, and I get what she's saying about Solo in the article. I'm just so over the disrespect that Solo gets. I'm over the disrespect I feel like that Alden Ehrenreich gets as playing Solo. He's 100% believable as Solo. That movie had a lot of problems from the beginning. It has nothing to do with people not being interested in a Han Solo origin story. Like, I refuse to believe that, because that movie is fun. It was great. There's a lot of problems with it, and it had nothing to do with the people that were, performing those characters. Nothing to do with the actors. Had nothing to do with that.
Right.
But this is a conversation for another day.
Yeah, it had a very interesting.
I love that movie,
but I really like it too. I enjoy it. There's some stuff I love in it. I thought they did it good. I mean, it was Lawrence Kasdan's last film. With he wrote Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and Raise the Lost. I wrote so many great iconic films of my childhood, so it was great to see him back. I was excited when he came back for The Force Awakens, but yeah, it's I think she touched on something that was very important with that film, which is one of the negative things she brought up. She was pretty positive overall, but she said that she regrets that she thinks that they worked themselves into a situation where it was a flawed idea from the start to make a Han Solo film.
Right. That just pisses me off.
I don't. It, like I said, it has nothing to do with the quality of Alden. I keep messing up his name. Alden's acting or anything like that, but I do see a point there. I think she does have a point that it was tough. Like they started the project and they kind of, maybe it was too soon to do such an iconic character as his, but
that's fair.
So that's what I take.
That's fair. I think that it speaks to the larger point of the timing of let's put Solo out right in the middle of Avengers Infinity War.
That was the biggest
put it out right after a saga film. They put out right after Episode 8. Like, to me, Star Wars movies need to breathe. We need to let them sit for a couple of years in between. That Star Wars should not become this, we're putting a movie out every single year. I think that taints the beauty of Star Wars, because they are experiences that are meant to be shared and cherished, and not done so all of the time. Like, Star Wars shouldn't be like Christmas, which comes around every year. I'm sorry, Jesus, but Star Wars should feel a little bit bigger than your Christmas celebration every year. It really should, because
I'm not sitting there so the
lightning bolt will strike, but not necessarily in the importance of what it means, but just in the gravity of when I am with my family every Christmas. I cherish that, I love that, and I want to be there every year. But when I go see a Star Wars movie, it's like I don't necessarily always know the next time that I have one, because I don't have Christmas already marked in my calendar the next year like I do. For Star Wars, I might not have that next one marked off, and I don't know when it's going to be. And I don't want Star Wars to ever lose what it was like to go see a 7 and 8. Right. Even a Rogue One, because it had those ties to the trilogy. Going to see Episode 3. Right. I'm not saying we're ever going to recapture the same magic of Episode 7 and what that was like, but I do think that when Starfighter comes out next year, even if it's only 1 year since we saw a Star Wars movie, because it's going to be so different from Mando and Grogu, like, that is going to be a magical experience, because it's going to just be the event that you have to be at, especially when you consider the 50-year anniversary of Star Wars. And I think Solo's problem was it was the last movie. Like, it was like the fourth movie sandwiched in a couple of years, Last Jedi, Rogue One came out, then The Last Jedi, and then Solo just a few months after that. And then we had Episode 9 coming up, the next, like a year and a half from that. It was just too much. I think if you spaced it out, like if a Han Solo movie was coming out soon, I think people would be really excited for it.
I agree.
But one more thing from the interview I do want to touch on. Kathleen Kennedy said that very recently she had dinner with George. They had dinner with George, and it was really nice to kind of read how it felt like you could see her breathing a sigh of relief to be stepping away. Like, she was excited to move in these other projects, but ultimately, like, see George and see that he's really moved on well and found like a new passion with his museum, and that she said that he told her that he was very pleased with what was going on in the future, the direction. And I'm glad that she had that like almost closure. Not that she's hasn't talked to George in years. I'm sure they have some, level of communication semi often. But, I'm sure for anyone that's ever inherited something or taken on a project that someone else maybe passed down to them, and for that person who is probably like someone you look up to, a mentor, a colleague, a friend, someone that you've worked that closely with, even that trusted you that much, George trusting Kathleen to do that is like trusting him with his child, essentially. And for it to get that sense of respect and reassurance, I'm sure meant the world to her.
And I think there was a question in the or a comment in the comments about George Lucas, and I don't know if he's eager to get back and be involved, which I don't think he will be, but I think that he'll be closer because him and Filoni is like a son to him, from what I've seen. Filoni is like his apprentice, and I feel that if Filoni called, he would come. Like, he was on the set of The Mandalorian, George Lucas, and he was also on the set of Solo with Ron. He has a relationship with Ron Howard too. So I feel that, and to Darth Gillies, is that his handle there? I think that with Filoni, we're getting, I guess, kind of a continuation of what George would have brought in some ways. So, and I think he won't be a stranger like he was in the past, so much to set. So, but I still think he has a great relationship with Kathleen Kennedy, and it's obvious from the article. But I think with Filoni, he was very hands-on with him, almost like he kind of trained him basically in so many ways. So I think that we might see a little bit more of him, hopefully.
I think that'd be awesome. I will say, let's go ahead and wrap up here with a couple of quick hitters. We had a couple of random questions, very random off-topic questions here, but we'll go ahead and tackle them. It said, "Do you think Keanu Reeves would play a great Darth Revan? The ultimate fan casting that always exists." So I actually have a unique answer to this, and the answer is no. I guess sure, yeah, in a theory, Keanu Reeves would play a great, version of a Darth Revan character, depending on, timelines and things. My vision for Keanu Reeves being in Star Wars, and a long time ago, Miguel and I did a pod of casting 5 roles for Keanu Reeves in Star Wars when there was like the rumor that he was, in the mix at one point for different things, or they had asked him about something. And the number one role that I wanted him to play was a role in Dawn of the Jedi movie with James Mangold. Like, I just think it would be incredible if he's some wise sage that's existing somewhere and that, almost helps the very first Jedi learn about the Force and come up with the Jedi texts, or if he's like some sort of mentor character that were to do that, that would be my casting of Keanu Reeves in Star Wars. Would have been something like that. Like, I just picture our main character climbing the mountain. He gets up there and it's just Keanu levitating in a meditative stance. Like, that was always something that I envisioned. So I'm sure he would have played a great Darth Revan character. But Tommy, anything to add?
Not so much. I think you covered it.
So second comment was, I've heard that Abeloth might be coming this Ahsoka season 2. Natalie Portman might be returning as Padme, and Abeloth will take her form to deceive Anakin. First of all, there's so many rumors right now about Ahsoka season 2. We're in the heart of rumor season for that. It's only going to get more and more rampant as we get trailers here in the coming months. But Tom, I'll throw this one to you real quick first.
I find that very
interesting. You think? Yeah, what you think?
Yeah, I don't know if Natalie Portman will come back. I mean, I would love to have her back, but I think that would be a great way, like you said, to deceive Anakin. I don't know, but like one of the things that I guess has never really been consistent in Star Wars is how Force ghosts, like, can they be deceived? Can they be, like, so I don't know how they would pull that off. I mean, obviously, we're leaning into Filoni's Gods of Mortis characters from the end of season 1 of Ahsoka. So that would be very interesting, I think, to have something like that. I think that's a big ask. I heard that rumor in the past, but I haven't really seen anything else to substantiate it. But hopefully we'll know soon. I mean, it's pretty interesting.
So to answer the Abeloth question, if you would ask me 3 years ago, there was so much Abeloth. Like you see Abeloth stuff all the time in Star Wars. Like, ooh, what if they did this with Abeloth? And every single time I saw it, I literally would roll my eyes and be like, "Are you kidding me? Like, stop with this Abeloth bull crap. Like, I'm so over it, and like it's never going to happen. Like, let's just move on." Here we are. I'm going to be saying, I guess I'm pretty confident Abeloth is what's awaiting them, like at the end of this journey, that they're trying to make sure she doesn't get out and destroy us all here in Star Wars. And I'm almost kind of expecting that now, but we'll see. We'll see. As far as Natalie Portman returning as Padme, Abeloth taking form to see Anakin. Now, I'm going to ignore the second part of that. I have no idea what Natalie Portman would do if she came back, whether it's a flash, just a simple flashback scene to Clone Wars, or if it's some sort of deception, whatever it is. Here's all I'll say. There was that fake story that came out that Natalie Portman had filmed scenes for Ahsoka season 2. It was debunked by a lot of people. Now, that doesn't mean that she didn't go later, or she never went. It was, it's possible still, like you have to believe. But when that came out, there was about a 90-minute stretch where I believed, and the universe thought, and we all believed that Natalie Portman was back in Star Wars. When I tell you, Tom, from the mountaintops, the tallest peak in the highest mountain, I was, like Rocky in Rocky 4, jumping up and screaming. The birds flew away. Like, that was me. I was so excited that the queen was coming back, that we were going to see her on our screen again. A character that I felt was completely disserviced in Revenge of the Sith. I really wanted more from that character. A character that was pushed to the side in the Clone Wars in many ways. A character whose books I don't think are deserving of the great character. That is calling you out, E.K. Johnston, the author. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. We all know how I feel about E.K. Johnston. She did write a great book in Crimson Climb. E.K. Johnston killed it with Crimson Climb. Respect where respect is due. But the Padme books are not becoming of the great character that Natalie Portman portrayed. So when I heard that there was a chance that she was going to return, I was so excited that we might have this perfect moment, that she could bookend this incredible arc of an incredible character, and there could be some incredible closure from her point of view, from our point of view, and for the character in general. So I'm with you at Paula1966. I really, really want that to happen, but it's not going
I am
to.
all
I'm
for
gonna be
that.
sad. It's not going to.
It probably won't. But my niece is so obsessed with Padme.
Good.
She has a she just turned old enough to get a tattoo, and she got a small Padme tattoo. And it's just, she would freak if Natalie Portman returned. Like, it would be so, but I would love it too. I love Natalie Portman, I just don't know how they could do that unless they did a de-aged flashback or something like that. But
yeah. All right, a couple more before we get out of here, as we're almost in an hour and a half. Okay, let's wrap up here. MD Henshaw here says the general audience didn't really care about recast solo film after Avengers Deadpool 2. Exactly, like it was sandwiched in. It was never gonna work. And then, oh, we got someone here from TikTok here. I think this guy, I'm pretty sure he's always like hyped up for like the Mando and Grogu film. So like, shout out to Jesus MM07. I did summon you. Yes, I did. It was the Mando and Grogu hype that summoned you, I feel like. And go back and watch the rest of the stream. We're covering all of the news from the Kathleen Kennedy article. And don't worry, I'll have my Mando and Grogu video out tomorrow morning. Manslayer in the chat finally. Like, we've been wondering where you were this week, Manslayer. We are still here. We are about to sign out of here, though. If you want to get a quick comment in, go for it, and we could talk about it real fast. But he said can't wait to watch the replay. And then real quick, this is a great one to end on. Not gonna say that now. I have no idea what it is, but random. It says favorite Star Wars character. For me, this changes daily. I feel like sometimes. Tom, what are you feeling like on January 15th, 11:24 Eastern Standard Time? Who is your favorite Star Wars character right now?
It's always Luke. It's always Luke, but I mean,
Always.
I have so many favorites, but like Luke to me was like the main him and Han, like that
Mhm.
duo, the two of them. It's like and there was a recent, I don't know if it was recent, but he touched on again Mark Hamill. I think he's always kind of been a little bit complaining about how the big three weren't together, all of them in the sequel trilogy. And I think he said
Mhm.
something again about it like recently.
He did,
And
yeah.
it was kind of a missed opportunity. Like I'll agree as much as I kind of
Mhm.
defend that,
Agreed.
but yeah, Luke, Luke, Han, Leia, it's like these are the people I
Absolutely.
grew up with.
So, Han Solo is definitely, like, up there. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ahsoka Tano as I'm wearing, my Ahsoka Tano embroidered quarter zip. So like those are always the two for me that I go back and forth on. Padme's up there, but I will say that there's different seasons of my life I gravitate towards different characters a little more. And for whatever reason, we talked about Rey earlier this evening, and I just really love that character and I want to see more of it. So right now, for the sake of pushing forward on a Rey movie, I'll say Rey is right now taking home the prize. But yeah, any last things, Tom? Before I want to do a quick recap of everything that we talked about. But anything before then?
Yeah, I mean a lot. We tried our best to unpack a lot of information. I'm sure more will come out, but
Oh, it's
just want to
crazy.
thank the people watching and
Absolutely.
commenting. It's great to have you all here.
So, like a quick recap here for those of you who just joined the stream and want to go back and watch the rest, would love for you to do that. Please like, subscribe to the channel, comment, all the good things. But just to recap, we talked about how we felt that the Simon Kinberg trilogy seems like it has the inside track to be that Star Wars movie that goes into production this year. We talked about how we feel like since Kathleen Kennedy didn't mention the the Rey movie in this interview, is that movie possibly scrapped but getting reworked into the first movie of Simon Kinberg's trilogy? We talked about why we think that a little bit more in depth. If you go back, I think that was the first one we talked about. Of course, Kathleen Kennedy mentioned the Hunt for Ben Solo, so we did talk about the Hunt for Ben Solo and how she said it's there if someone's willing to take a risk. Take the risk, Lucasfilm. Take the leap. We are here for it always. Of course, we put this image on the screen with Dave Filoni, James Mangold, Charmino Obaid-Chinoy all together on the celebration stage. We thought it was going to be the next 3 films on Star Wars. Nothing could stand in our way, Tom. But of course, life happened. Star Wars decided to happen. And it looks like we may never get any of these movies, as Mangold's was called firmly on the back burner, firmly on hold. There is no mention of Charmino Obaid-Chinoy's New Jedi Order, and no mention of Dave Filoni's movie. Of course, Dave might still have more to say on that. And here we go. Taika Waititi has a script. It's really good. It's hilarious. It's unlike anything we've ever seen in Star Wars, according to Kathleen Kennedy. But will we ever see it get made? We talk about that as well. And of course, your weekly Mandalorian and Grogu check-in. I think that pretty much covers everything. And a loving tribute to Stellan Skarsgård at the beginning because of his Golden Globe win, and we love him. Anyway, all right. Tom, thank you for hopping on here with me every Thursday. I really appreciate it. It's always a blast to be able to talk Star Wars with someone who's been there since the beginning. I feel like we have got to be really good friends over the course of the last year. And I'm excited to kind of really kick off this next year with more Star Wars talks with you. And of course, seeing what the next Star Wars movie that goes into production is going to be. Go ahead and check out Star Wars Newsnet for all your Star Wars updates and all of your Star Wars news from we even talked about Galaxy's Edge getting that original trilogy makeover. We might talk about more of that later. Go ahead and follow me on TikTok at Star Wars Book Dude for your daily Mandalorian updates and random Star Wars stuff all of the time. For Light and Life, everyone. Thank you, Manslayer, for the Tom Game voice recap of Clone Wars comparison. But remember, guys, for Light and Life, and we are all searching for answers on what's next for Lucasfilm.